Hey, it's Rebecca here on the Learn Flute podcast. This is episode 6.
You can do it, and Rebecca will show you how, step by step all along the way. Introducing the Learn Flute podcast.
Well, hi and welcome back for this new episode here on the Learn Flute podcast, where I, Rebecca Fuller, am the expert at all things flute, and I am rooting for you. This free podcast resource is brought to you by the good gold level members over on my LearnFluteOnline.com website, where they are busy engaging and learning from my awesome and very large collection of video lesson tutorials. Now, speaking of those awesome flute students, I thought it would be fun today to start out with a little testimonial from a sweet lady named Sarah. Now, Sarah posted this in the forum comment section in one of the modules there, and I forgot to write down exactly which number this was in. There are actually over 82 modules in the gold level alone, so it would take me a little while to do some digging to find out exactly. But anyway, here's what she says. Hi, Rebecca. I'm going great and smoothly on these modules. Your style is absolutely amazing, and I just love my flute even more thanks to you. I'm so happy. She used about 8 O's there on the word so happy that I found your website. Thank you for being an amazing teacher. Well, Sarah, thank you for being such a great online student of mine. I wish you well and tons of success in your practicing this week. I'll be watching for you again in a future module. Now, I just realized that I keep using the word module here, and I don't think I've even explained what this means, so I'll do that real quickly here now. I've worked really hard on a perfect system of organization and learning, so you find people who are interested in learning how to play the flute can come and participate easily. I set everything up in order for your success. I have the lessons all set up in neat little packages called modules, which include several video lesson tutorials where I personally walk you right through the skill that's being taught. I also make it easy for you to click and download the sheet music, progress notes, and also MP3 accompaniments that go along with that module. It's all set in a nice, neat little package for you. Everyone learns when they come to Learn Flute Online. I chose the subject of today's podcast because I'm always surprised at how many people don't follow this little rule. Now, let me explain here by telling you a little story. Last year, I had the absolute pleasure of visiting another country where I was touring around and having a ton of fun. And this is actually one of the most gorgeous countries in the world. While I was there, I was able to hang out with some of my online students. You hear that? This flute teacher likes to travel, and I will take my students up on their invitations to visit. Well, anyway, one day, we had been out walking along the canals and checking out the quaint and absolutely amazing sights and scenery when we ended up in a tulip field. Okay, by now you've probably guessed I was in Holland. And while we were in this particular tulip field, we met a nice lady who invited us back to her place. Well, let me backtrack. It's not creepy or anything. She was actually an acquaintance of some of the people that I was with. So we went into her cottage, and my eye was immediately drawn to the piano she had there, where I spotted a flute sitting right on top of it. I couldn't help myself, of course, so I walked over to check it out. Well, I kind of stood there and stared in horror for a second, and then I had to hurry and recover myself because I felt rude. And the reason is because this flute was completely brown, like the color of a brown crayon. Now, this flute was not originally the color brown like some of the new fun flutes you can see the junior high students using. There's purple and pink and all sorts nowadays. But anyway, this flute was brown from being left on top of the piano for months and years, I was guessing. Now, the interesting thing then was that the owners of the place saw my interest in the flute and started talking about it. They mentioned how it was a sweet gift and how the wife was so excited to learn how to play it someday. Someday seemed to be the key word because that flute looked like it had been waiting a very long time. They asked me if I played, and when I said yes, they wanted a concert. I tried to decline. Seeing the condition of the flute, I was not sure it would even make any noise, but out of curiosity, I decided to pick it up and see what I could do. I tried one note first, a B, and it kind of worked. A little fuzzy on the tone, but it did work. So I went for another note and then another, and it kind of sort of played. So I went for a fancy tune to kind of show off a little for them. Well, to say the least, it didn't really turn out so well because the mechanism was all gummed up from the months and years of dust settling on it. So some of the keys were sticking down when they should have popped up, and others were moving super slowly like they had a hydraulic hinge on them. To make this long story a little shorter for you, I think you can see my point here today. Flutes are not like other inanimate objects. They have feelings. Well, okay, probably maybe not really, but maybe because they definitely must have proper care or they shrivel and die. Now, the brown color of this flute I saw was because of something called tarnish. Now, if you've ever checked out your grandmother's or your great-grandmother's silver collection, you'll know that these pieces must be polished and kept in carefully guarded cases or the pretty shininess gets all covered by icky, dull, brownish tarnish. I actually snapped a picture of this flute before I left their house. If you've been on my email list and in the lesson series very long, you may have seen this exact picture. So this is the story behind that. I was so sad because with just a tiny bit of knowledge and a few seconds of care, this flute could still have as much potential as it had the very first day they received it. So, here are some flute rules for you all in flute learner listening land here today on this podcast. Number 1, you must swab out the inside of your flute after playing it. It's just as simple as that, and it only takes a few seconds. These flutes get moisture in them from our breath as we play, and if the flute's put away in its case with the moisture still in it, then the pads will poof up and eventually crack and start to leak. Now we can get into more detail in a future episode about which cloths are the best and this and that. Now, number 2, you must wipe your fingerprints off of the flute before putting it away. Our skin has a lot more oil in it than you think, and the oil and the acid on our skin will change the composition of the silver and actually cause it to grow the tarnish. And we can talk more about that later too. Okay, the very last thing you need to do with your flute is actually just put it away in the case every single day. Now take my advice on this. You may not notice a difference in your flute color or playing ability right away from leaving it out, but it definitely eventually will happen. It creeps up and creeps into your flute mechanism, causing you or the person playing it to have a much, much harder time getting it to sound good. Now, I don't think that we're all going to a lot of trouble to learn and practice just so that we can give our flute some abuse by not cleaning and putting it away now, should we? I didn't think so. If you can love your flute, chances are it will love you back. Well, that's a wrap today for another great episode here on the Learn Flute podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the information given here. You can show me this by giving me a nice rating in iTunes or wherever you're listening. And don't forget to come over to the website at learnfluteonline.com where you can join in on the conversation in the forum comment sections of each podcast episode. Remember that it's really, really easy to find them. If you've just landed yourself on the home page at learnfluteonline.com, then you just need to click on the bonus content page in the top menu bar where you'll see all the different categories I have there. One of them being this podcast. You can see a lineup of different episodes that have already been released and click in to read along, listen again, or leave a comment or question. I've also made it really easy to get right into these episodes by typing in the address of each one in your browser window. For example, you could type in the URL learnfluteonline.com/, and then the episode number. Now, I already knew I was going to be making a lot of these, so I started the numbers with 2 zeros in the beginning, like 001, 002, 003, etc. This particular episode is episode 006, so you can find it at learnfluteonline.com/006. I can't wait to see you there. Bye now.
Thanks for listening today. Remember that this is where people of all ages, such as you, can come, learn, and play the musical instrument flute in an easy-to-follow, organized manner, and in the privacy and comfort of your own home, on your own schedule.